Greetings and peace. I would like to start this with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be with you and yours. Today's presentation, I would like to analyze the Blue Lodge degrees, the Royal Arch degrees, their teachings, working tools, and moral lessons from the Islamic perspective. Again, I represent myself only, and this is for entertainment, free speech, and education purposes. A disclaimer that this presentation or my other videos and books is not to inspire you to join Freemasonry, rather just take the teachings and apply them to your life. Modern Lodge and Grand Lodge Freemasonry is filled with bigoted bastards, politics, egos, betrayal, and racism. You don't need it in today's world. And for an organization to claim the betterment of mankind, the world shouldn't be in the condition that it is in. So it's not needed. Just take the good from it and apply it to your life. That's all you can do. Just like you could do that with any other system. So please check out my entire playlist on Islam, Sufism, and Freemasonry on my YouTube channel, Salman as Sheikh. Thank you. I represent myself only under free speech and entertainment purposes. Now, this presentation explores the deep moral and spiritual lessons of the Blue Lodge and the Royal Arch degrees of Freemasonry and places them in conversation with the timeless wisdom of Islam and the mystical teachings of Sufism, which is the inner temple of Islam. Freemasonry, though often described as a system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, resonates with the Islamic call to purify the self, to live uprightly, and to seek divine knowledge. The Quran serves as the central reference point for Muslims, offering verses that parallel and illuminate the Masonic journey of transformation. Our goal is not to merge two distinct traditions, but to highlight their shared pursuits of truth. The degrees of Masonry emphasize humility, discipline, justice, fidelity, and enlightenment. Islam and the Sufi path emphasize these same principles, but within the revealed framework of divine law and spiritual practice. By examining Masonic tools and teachings alongside Quranic verses and Sufi insights, we discover a universal moral language that transcends culture and creed. Now, the overview is that this presentation covers the Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, and Master Mason degrees of the Blue Lodge, followed by the 4 degrees of the Royal Arch, Mark Master, Past Master, Most Excellent Master, and Royal Arch Mason. Each section will explore the teachings, the working tools, the moral lessons, and the Quranic verses that provide spiritual resonance. In the end, we will summarize the shared values and conclude with academic references for further study. The Entered Apprentice degree marks the beginning of a Mason's journey, symbolizing initiation into light. It teaches humility, obedience, and a readiness to receive knowledge. The candidate enters as a seeker, unknowing, but willing to be transformed. This aligns with the Islamic view that the path to God begins with recognition of one's ignorance and dependence upon divine guidance. Sufi masters often stress that the first step on the pathway is sincerity, an honest acknowledgement of one's need for purification and enlightenment. The working tools of this degree are the 24-inch gauge, symbolizing time well spent in prayer, labor, and rest, and the common gavel, used to chip away the vices of character. In Islam, the structuring of time through 5 daily prayers mirrors the discipline of the gauge, while fasting and remembrance purify the soul like the gavel. The Quran affirms from Surah 91, verse 9 through 10, "He has succeeded who purifies the soul, and he has failed who corrupts it." This verse resonates with the apprentice's duty to begin the lifelong process of inner refinement and self-improvement. The Fellowcraft degree represents growth in knowledge, intellectual development, and the cultivation of moral virtues. It emphasizes balance between body and soul, labor and rest, material and spiritual pursuits. In Sufism, balance is known as the mizan, the divine scale that maintains harmony in creation and within the self. And mizan is also the scale where your deeds will be weighed. A Fellowcraft is called to rise beyond mere survival and to pursue wisdom, a call echoed in the Quran's frequent encouragement to reflect upon creation and seek knowledge. So the inner chambers, the middle chamber, the seven liberal arts, and just progressing towards that enlightenment. The tools of this degree are the square, the level, and plumb, which symbolize justice, equality, and uprightness. A Mason is taught to square his actions with virtue, to walk on the level with humanity, and to remain upright before God. The Quran declares, "Read in the name of your Lord, who created, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not," from Surah 96, verses 1 through 5. This verse connects the knowledge with responsibility, echoing the Masonic principle that learning must lead to moral and spiritual elevation. The Master Mason degree confronts the candidate with mortality and the eternal destiny of the soul. Through allegory, it teaches fidelity, courage, and the hope of immortality. It asks Masons to live as though accountable beyond the grave. Islam echoes this truth. Death is not an end, but a passage to accountability. The Sufi tradition often meditates on death, not with despair, but as a reminder to live each moment in sincerity. The ultimate lesson is that integrity and faith endure beyond worldly existence. The tools of this degree are the trowel, used to spread brotherly love and affection, represents unity among humanity. This parallels the Islamic concept of the ukhuwah, the spiritual brotherhood of believers. And the Quran says in Surah 3, verse 185, "Every soul shall taste death, and you will only be given your full compensation on the day of resurrection." Now the verse connects mortality with moral duty, reminding both Mason and Muslim that life is preparation for the eternal abode. So basically, this whole life you're being prepared for that final initiation, which is death itself. Now, the craft Mason degrees, right, what in America they call the Blue Lodge, their story really concludes in the Royal Arch system. That includes the Mark Master Mason teachings as well. And when we get into this degree, we see that it emphasizes integrity in labor and the eternal significance of one's actions. Each work is marked, symbolizing that God sees and records all deeds. In Islam, honesty and trustworthiness are fundamental virtues, with the Prophet Muhammad known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Sufis likewise stress that every action has spiritual weight. The Mark Master Mason degree reinforces that no deed is forgotten, a teaching profoundly echoed in the Quran. The tools of this degree are the chisel and the mallet, which symbolize careful craftsmanship and discipline, teaching that even the smallest details matter. The Quran declares from Surah 18, verse 49, "And their record of deeds will be placed upon." What is this book that leaves nothing small or great except it has enumerated it? This verse affirms that every action is preserved, underscoring the moral seriousness of this human life. Now, the Past Master degree. This degree, though symbolic, teaches the burden of leadership. Authority is not privilege, but trust, requiring humility and accountability. A leader must serve with justice and fairness, echoing the Islamic principle that leadership is amana, a trust given by God. Sufi wisdom warns against the ego's corruption in positions of power, urging leaders to remember that all authority is borrowed and must be exercised with compassion and justice. Now, the Past Master Quranic parallels are as follows, where in Surah 4, verse 58, it says, "Indeed, Allah commands you to render trusts to whom they are due, and when you judge between people, to judge with justice." Now, this reflects the moral lesson of the Past Master, who learns that true authority rests not in domination, but in being a true servant in stewardship. The most excellent master, this degree celebrates the completion of King Solomon's temple, a symbol of spiritual perfection and divine presence. It teaches that true excellence lies not in worldly accomplishment, but in devotion to God. In Islam, this corresponds to the principle of ihsan, worshiping God as if one sees him, and striving for moral and spiritual excellence in all aspects of your human life. Most excellent master is reflected in Surah 16, verse 90. Indeed, Allah commands justice and excellence in giving to relatives, and forbids immorality, bad conduct, and oppression. This verse captures the essence of the most excellent master degree, affirming that the highest calling is to embody justice, compassion, and ihsan. The Royal Arch degree. So, in the Freemasonry journey, you're given the substitute word of the Master Mason in the degree. While there's a difference in between being raised and exalted. That's why the story concludes in the chapter degrees, and many jurisdictions consider that as such as well. So this degree represents the recovery of lost knowledge and the revelation of divine truth. It symbolizes illumination and closeness to the divine. For Sufis, this parallels the marifa, the gnosis of God that comes through purification and divine grace as you go from one veil to another. The search for the hidden name reflects humanity's longing for ultimate meaning, a longing the Quran addresses by calling believers to the remembrance of Allah and the pursuit of divine light, right? Holiness to the Lord. Now, this light is described in Surah 24, verse 35, where they say that Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. This verse resonates with the Royal Arch lesson, emphasizing that the true illumination comes from God alone. Just as the Mason recovers lost knowledge, the believer finds enlightenment in the eternal light of Allah. Everything is about searching for that light. Here we also see the Quranic verses for each degree of craft Freemasonry. The first degree, entered apprentice, where you're being brought from darkness to light, in Surah 2, verse 257, where Allah is the guardian protector of the believers. He brings them out of darkness and into the light, which is basically teaching you, do not fear any danger and walk your path, right? Just put one foot in front of the other, knowing that you are guided, loved, protected, and provided for. The second degree, the Fellowcraft, chapter 58, verse 11. You who believe, if you are told to make room for one another in your meetings, then do so, and God will make room for you. And if you are told to rise up, right when the gavel hits, do so. God will raise up by many degrees those of you who believe and those who have been given knowledge. He is fully aware of what you do. And this is also teaching you that the all-seeing eye, right? One of the 99 names of Allah, Al-Basir, always watching you, and how the middle chamber is teaching you the same of reflecting upon God. And the knowledge, right? Pursue the arts and sciences and continue to improve yourself. Now, the Master Mason degree is chapter 21, verse 35, where you're reminded every soul will taste death. And we test you with good and evil. This is Allah using the Royal Arabic we. As a trial, then to us you will all be returned, right? To reflect upon death and the memento mori. Now, we also analyze the three stages of realization, Iman, Islam, and Ihsan. The first being Iman, where belief, faith, secrecy, and full trust in the grand architect of the universe, the entered apprentice degree. The second realization being Islam, submission, obedience, knowledge, and practice, to reflect on your growth and continue the pursuit of knowledge, Fellowcraft. So the first two degrees, the EA and the FC, is about secrecy and obedience. The third stage, Ihsan, is about a righteous, upright character and living a good life with the time you have been granted. Master Mason, die before you die. Now, all three stages must be honored fully, or you are just following mere rituals without any meaning, and inevitably leading to hypocrisy. You must practice what you preach, otherwise it's all meaningless and wasted effort. There is a difference between a learning phase and an application phase of knowledge, and majority of your time is spent outside of the lodge to apply these lessons and degrees to your daily life. Also, you need a guide and a mentor, just like in the Sufi path and Masonic path. No egoism or individualism. Now, the shared lesson, right, across the Blue Lodge and Royal Arch degrees, and the common themes basically are purification, responsibility, integrity, justice, and enlightenment. Islam and Sufism likewise emphasize that the path to God requires the purification of the self, the cultivation of virtue, and the pursuit of divine knowledge. The working tools of Masonry, the gauges, gavels, squares, and trowels, are metaphors for the same moral discipline that the Quran and Sufi teachers demand of the seeker. Freemasonry and Sufism are distinct paths, yet their moral lessons often converge. Both stress that human life is a journey of refinement, service, and devotion to God. By studying the parallels, we gain not a merging of traditions, but a deeper appreciation of universal truths that transcend boundaries. The Quran's verses serve as a timeless guide, reminding us that all wisdom points towards the same divine reality. Here are some resources that I recommend, some books, and of course the Quran itself to be read and understood in the English language. Thank you so much for watching. If any questions or comments, please email me at salmansheikh911@gmail.com. And of course, all of my videos, points of views, images, representations, everything is under the copyright laws of fair use, education purpose, for the purpose of free speech, entertainment, nonprofit, and education. Thank you. All rights reserved.